And we're live.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome to the Bible Boys. Another week.
Another day, another dawn.
That's it. I'm excited.
I'm excited.
It's middle of the afternoon, so I'm feeling a bit,
Yeah?
I need my coffee.
Hey, and you've got it. Your instant coffee.
A bit weary.
It's been a tricky weekend for sleep because of how hot it was. Now, you have air conditioning, though.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, so you
You've got
stayed
aircon?
out of it?
We were fine. You've got aircon where you are?
I've got aircon in the lounge room, the living room rather, but not the bedroom. So I think Saturday night was hard.
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah, it was tricky.
Yeah. Where we're moving to in Parramatta,
Yes.
there's no aircon.
Mm.
And we're bottom floor.
Yes.
Which apparently is the best place to be.
Yes, it
if
is.
you don't have aircon.
It's cooler.
Because hot air rises. Science?
Yes, generally hot air rises, but really hot air goes to wherever the cold air is.
Which is always...
Not always, but yes.
Because cold air can't exist down, because that's where the earth is. This is how I would be if I was a science teacher.
I love it. Dude, I love it. I think you'd be a great science
I was
teacher.
talking to someone yesterday who's a primary school teacher, and they were explaining they have to teach gravity
Oh, yes.
to their primary school students.
Yes.
And I would just be like, you get to like 2 layers of why. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, because of this force. It's like, why? Because of this. It's like, well, why?
Because it just is.
It just is,
It just
okay?
is.
Just deal with it. Right? Right?
There's what was it? There's a YouTube series of videos that's like takes a concept and explains it to people of different ages.
Yeah.
So you've got explain it to the 3-year-old, and then the 5-year-old, and then the 10-year-old, and then the high school student, and then the university student.
Yeah.
There's something.
Yeah.
I think it's something like that.
And in many ways, the youngest person's the hardest person.
Yes.
Because it's like, you're talking to a 60-year-old, and you're like, well, Feynman's theory of electromagnetic whatever.
Yeah.
And they're just like, go with it. And they're like, oh, yeah, whatever.
But then the 3-year-old.
The 3-year-old's like, nah, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Doesn't work for me.
That's right. I think one of the best bits of advice I ever got told was, if you can't explain something to a 5-year-old, you don't understand it well enough.
Yeah.
Which I've taken with me. Not that I, find 5-year-olds all the time and try to go, hey, let me explain gravity here. Let me explain gravity, Let me explain to you electromagnetism. But I think there is something there about being able to explain it really simply, really concretely.
Yeah.
That's mastery over a subject.
Yeah. But so we've been researching fans that are, powerful and the best fans to have in a place with no aircon. And we've come across one called the vornado.
The vornado.
Which I can only extract is some kind of combination between a tornado and a vortex.
Yes, that sounds right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, more science here. A tornado, and I kind of made this up on the fly, talking to some people the other day, and it went well. A tornado is air that spirals, and the kind of most concentrated point is at ground level. So it goes up like that, and it broadens as it goes up. You think of like Wizard of Oz kind of tornado. A vortex is the opposite. A vortex, the most concentrated point is at the top. And so you see this in water quite a bit, where at the deeper, at the depths, it's broad, but it spirals up to this one little concentrated point at the surface. What do you think of that?
I have absolutely no idea, but I believe you.
I have no idea.
You're convincing.
I have no idea.
Okay, I don't really know what a vortex is, but I thought of my connotation with the word vortex is it's some sort of worm pool that helps you transport from one location to another. Like, it's not some sort of an air circle thing. You know what I mean? Like a vortex.
Well, you get sucked into a vortex.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So,
but then the idea is that it's some form of transportation, right? Or a mode of getting from one place to the other.
So I'm hoping that it's whatever the vornado.
Yes.
I'm hoping it's just this powerful magical thing that makes everything cold. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yes, that's right.
Now,
that would be great for you and stuff.
That would be fantastic. But anyway, what have you been up to lately? Anything to share from your world, from your life?
Well, I've been enjoying the reels you've been making,
well,
Pip, on Instagram.
Yes.
So, listeners, if you haven't seen the gold, the wonder, the sheer brilliance of the Bible_Boyz with a Z account on Instagram. Our own Pip Witheridge has become...
I've been at it.
You've been at it.
Been doing a couple reels.
That's right.
Here and there. Bit of fun.
What's your favourite one so far that you've made?
My favourite one has got to be the Last Supper one. Just because I think the way I played Jesus was very kind of like... It was like a miracle to just get everyone in the same room.
That's right.
You know?
I found that the most amusing thing,
yeah.
Right? It ain't easy getting all the boys
same
together.
place, same time, you know?
Yeah, very good.
It's like Jesus is very proud of himself that he's got all the 12 disciples together in the same place.
Oh dear.
Yes. You know. I wonder, like, it does make you think logistically, because obviously, did they all kind of sleep under the stars together as they were going from place to place, or did they kind of go off to their... Was it like a sleepover situation where they'd go to one person's house and they'd change around, or did they go home each night? You know,
it's a good question. I think it's interesting that as at the start of Luke 8, we get told that these wealthy women supported Jesus' public ministry out of their own means. I'm going, well, where would the money have gone? Food, clothing, lodging, maybe. There you go.
Yeah.
So maybe they camped, but then maybe they also stayed at inns and things like that.
Yeah, had a few socials.
That's right.
Yeah. So look, I mean, listeners, if you've got ideas for reels that you want to see come to life, just send them to us on Instagram, and we'll make it happen.
Yes. And if it helps people actually experience this podcast, and helps the Instagram page gain exposure, people check out this podcast for some, deeper discussions about the Bible.
That's right.
That's great.
One of my hopes is I'm trying to put the Bible verse, the passage, as the description on each reel. My hope is that people actually look it up and see what actually happened in the story. What am I trying to, make fun of?
Yes.
And my other goal is to not be sacrilegious.
Too late, my friend.
Well, I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't want to be sacrilegious. I don't want to be irreverent.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to kind of make stuff that makes you think of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if anyone takes offense, I am sorry.
Please let us know.
Yeah.
Yes. My favorite one was the Abraham and Isaac one, just because I liked your Isaac and Abraham voices.
Yeah. Just really.
Oi, Dad, thanks for bringing me along to the sacrifice. Oh yeah, son. No worries.
The dad's just like mentally detached from what's happening. he's focused on other things.
Well, Abraham was probably beset with worry at what was going to happen. So I thought you embodied the role.
Yes. I mean, as Isaac's kind of going along, he would have thought, where is this? Where is it?
Yes.
The sacrifice.
Yes.
It's a bit awkward the closer it gets.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But on top of that, apart from just admiring the reels, which people should go to Bible_Boyz with a Z on Instagram and follow us. Viv and I have been continuing to watch Lost. Did I tell you we were watching Lost?
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah. And I was thinking about it this year reflecting this year and going, wow, there's been a bunch of TV shows that Viv and I have watched together. We finished Buffy. We didn't start from the beginning. We finished Angel. We finished Seinfeld. And I think we're going to finish Lost before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So...
Can I make a recommendation for next week?
Please. Yes.
Have you seen The West Wing?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And actually, we plan on that being the next one.
Really?
We had this chat last week, and we decided that will be our next show.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, you're a prophet.
Telekinesis. I don't know.
Telepathy.
Telekinesis
is moving things with your mind. That's right.
I'm moving thoughts with my mind
now. And so you have watched The West Wing before?
Yeah.
I'm watching.
I've watched it probably twice.
Yeah, nice.
I'm back into it right now.
Nice.
So I'm watching it at the moment.
Third time.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is gonna sound really weird, but watching shows. This is gonna sound really bad, but watching TV where people are working really hard is very relaxing, but it also motivates you. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Is that weird to say?
No, I don't think so. There is something about seeing people... I mean, it's not just working, but do you find it relaxing to see people who are good at what they do?
Yeah, and people who are articulate, thoughtful,
Yes.
Seeing that happen,
Yes.
it's pretty big stuff.
No, I agree. And I love watching... So I've watched The West Wing, I think, 4 times now. And I really appreciate just seeing... It's so idealistic, right? But they're articulate, they're clear, and characters... And there's a sense in which there's no real character development. But there is, like, opinions being changed.
Yeah.
Depending on what the episode is and things like that.
Yeah.
So
I think something like there was an episode where Toby's been let go.
Yes.
He's done something, and he's spending his free time reading the Constitution.
Yeah, that's right. And he
He
finds...
finds an error.
That's right.
Like a punctuation discrepancy between 2 copies.
That's right.
And that moment was like, I know it's fictional, obviously, but the idea of someone knowing the text that their career is essentially based on to that level.
Yes.
And it made me... There's a parallel there to ministry. It's like, how well do you know the Bible? It's like, if you have, are you that... Is it a passion and not just a job?
Yes.
Like,
That's right. And all of those characters, Toby, CJ, Josh, Sam, Leo, like, it's definitely more than just a job. It's their life. I mean, think about how the work consumes Leo and his marriage breaks down because of it. Like, it's not portrayed as, like there is a cost that these characters invoke for their devotion to the president.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love... Yeah, I do enjoy The West Wing. I started watching The Queen's Gambit.
Oh, yeah?
On Netflix. Yes. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I have. Chess.
Chess.
That's all I know. And The Queen's Gambit is a move in chess.
Yes,
that's
it's an opening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where you sacrifice your queen. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Well, I think you sacrifice... It's like chess, Gambit is like...
Yes.
Gamble?
Possibly.
I think.
Yeah.
That's
a wager.
A wager. And so, like, you risk your queen, and it's a risk because you're trying to set up this other play kind of thing.
Yes.
That's all. But I haven't seen the show.
Yeah.
And actually,
yes,
there was a time where I used to, this is really weird, but I used to rewatch historic chess matches on YouTube.
Really?
And not even like the people, just the board,
yeah.
and someone electronically would replay the moves and talk it through.
Yeah, nice.
And I watched this for like a couple of weeks, and then I went to Jack Day,
loyal listener,
Feb
East with us himself.
That's it. And I said, and this is way back when, and I said, let's play a game because I think I'm really good at chess. And he beat me in like 5 moves. And from that point, I haven't played. I gave up.
You're done with this game.
Yeah.
Chess, I think, is just such a beautiful, amazing game. And I've found this show to be quite captivating. It's really beautifully shot, well acted, well written. I'm only 3 episodes in of the 7. Really keen to keep watching.
Nice.
Yeah. Chess, by the way. Arguably the greatest board game.
Yeah.
StarCraft, the greatest strategic video game, I would say. And then what about sport? What would you say? Soccer?
Yeah, soccer, the world game.
The world game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Do you know that chess was invented after checkers?
No, I didn't know that. Is that true?
I don't know. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Because checkers is a very simple game.
They're like, oh, okay, we've got these squares. Hey, what if we used all the squares instead of just these the diagonal ones?
And what if instead of just being able to go diagonally, they could go, you had different rules for each one?
That's it. That's right. And what if we made it like a royal match, one side against the other?
Yeah.
That's actually how it went.
Yeah.
That's right.
In fact, in Harry Potter...
Yes.
in Harry Potter 1 where they have that...
Yeah, the wizard's chess.
Yes. Originally, there was going to be wizard's checkers. And they were just going to stand on these kind of little discs.
But then J.K. Rowling discovered that chess was a thing.
She thought, you know what? It's more of a visual... It's actually better visually if it's like a horse and like a bishop and stuff. So let's do that.
Can you imagine in the first Harry Potter film if it wasn't wizard's chess, it was wizard's checkers? And
actually, before it went from mahjong to checkers. It was originally going to be them. It's like playing this big game of mahjong.
It's like Ron, it's like, Harry be that person, Hermione be that, and then Ron's like, I'll be a knight. It's like, no, I'll be the 9 circled Mahjong piece.
Ron's just like, I actually don't know how to play Mahjong, so I'm not...
And then Professor Quirrell could never get through as well because he doesn't know how to play.
That's right. They spent 20 minutes watching that scene from Crazy Rich Asians to try and learn it.
Oh man, and that's it. You know what? That would have made more sense because if Dumbledore really didn't want Quirrell to get Voldemort to get the Philosopher's Stone,
would have picked a game that no one knew how to play.
That's right. Why would you pick chess that everyone knows how to play? J.K. Rowling, she knows. There's something there, Dumbledore was testing. Anyway.
Hey, speaking of shows.
Yes.
You know how I was saying I watched that David Attenborough documentary?
Which one?
The most recent one? The kind of biography one where he talks about climate change and stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Soph and I, we're trying to go more vegetarian. Right? And I've been trying to quit meats. Particularly, I have a lot of like cold meats on sandwiches.
Oh, there you go.
And I just realised, I can't quit cold turkey. It's too good.
Pip, what have you been reading in the Bible?
Oh, okay. Can I just say, by the way,
what?
I was doing a talk at Saltland Friday night.
Yes.
And we did a Q&A time on the phones afterwards.
Yes.
And a bunch of questions came in on the topic, which was marriage and sex, which was from talking about 1 Corinthians 7. Someone texted in to the Q&A phone and they said, I don't have a question. I just want to say I really like the Bible Boys.
Yes. And that's an anonymous text because we don't have, contact names and stuff. We
So,
want to say, listener, thank you.
Whoever that is out in Saltland and Youthland.
Yes.
And I think there's dozens of you, to be honest. If
true.
you're at Salt, well done you, and thank you for your loyal support.
Thank you. Tell your friends.
That's right.
Maybe start with the Instagram page.
That's it.
Yep.
What have I been reading?
What have you been reading in the Bible?
Well, I've been preparing for this talk on Matthew 13 coming up in a couple of weeks from our church.
Yes.
I've said that. I think I said this a while back. Matthew 13:44 has got to be up there with my favourite verses in the Bible, if not my favourite.
Back in episode 1, I believe, we shared a verse that we really liked.
Yes. So, Matthew 13:44, it's a story in one verse. And Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. And just, I think, it's usually a bad sign when I'm feeling really good about a talk. It usually means that it's... I don't know. It usually means that it's going to be bad, the talk. Whenever I feel nervous about a talk, it's usually... I end it and I feel good about it. Whenever I feel really confident about a talk leading up to it, it's usually not as good as I want it to be. I don't know why. It's just a weird thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so one thing I have been doing is trying to trace this idea of the kingdom of heaven and what is heaven through, through Matthew and the rest of the New Testament. And so I thought I'd just share. It just struck me as interesting that in chapter 3 of Matthew, you get John the Baptist come on the scene. And his very first words, from what I can see, of his very first words of public ministry are, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. Chapter 3, verse 2. So the very first words out of John the Baptist's mouth regard the kingdom of heaven coming near. And then in chapter 4, what we see is Jesus begins to preach, and his very first words of public ministry, recorded in Matthew, in verse 17 of chapter 4, he says, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. And then you go to chapter 10, and Jesus sends out the 12 disciples to do public ministry. to go from town to town. And what's the message that he gives them to say? It comes in, let me try and find it.
Verse 7.
Verse 7 says, "As you go, proclaim this message, the kingdom of heaven has come near." And so you're starting to see, like, you know, the message that Jesus, John the Baptist, the disciples, and then even like in Paul and Peter kind of sum up the message as the message of the kingdom of heaven. And so I just found that very interesting. I need to think more on exactly what it means and what the kingdom of heaven is.
Yes.
But I think the where I'm landing with this whole kingdom of heaven thing is, when we think kingdom of heaven, we often go straight to what it looks like, where it is, yes. the kind of sensory sensations about heaven. You know, we think of this, like, I think of this expanse, this, you know, field, these mountain ranges, beautiful nature, the sun is shining, you feel great, you hear music, you hear laughter, you hear chatter, you know, you're with your friends, you're with Jesus, you know, all this sort of thing. But rather than kind of focusing on what the realm will be like, the Bible focuses on what the reign will be like and who will have the reign. And so one of the key lines I think in my talk is going to be, the key to understanding how good the kingdom of heaven will be is understanding how good the King of heaven is. And we see that most clearly in his sacrificial death on the cross for us and his resurrection from the dead.
Yeah, nice.
So that's kind of where I'm at with Bible reading at the moment and dwelling on the Word.
That's great.
Yeah. And you're giving the same talk? I mean, on the same passage? Different...
I'm just going to take your manuscript and do my Pip impression.
Yeah. What's the deal? Kingdom of heaven.
You know, it's funny actually, because Sam, who was preaching on Sunday, he wasn't sure, because he was having some surgery, right? He wasn't sure if he wasn't going to be able to preach. So he actually asked me on Wednesday, he said, "Hey, can I send you my manuscript and you can be on standby?" And I was saying to Viv, I don't talk as fast as Sam does. If I have to preach Sam's script, I don't know.
And Sam preaches long sermons.
Long sermons, that's right. So I was like, I'm going to have to do a Sam Russell impression or something. But anyway. Yeah. But similar... So not similar, same passage that we'll be doing, I'll be preaching on Matthew 13, 44 to 58. I really appreciate hearing that thing that you've drawn out there, that actually, John the Baptist, Jesus, and the disciples, they were essentially to preach the same message about the kingdom of heaven being near. It is striking, isn't it, that Matthew keeps using the term kingdom of heaven. Yes,
and you get other... kingdom of God.
Kingdom of God, that's right. In Luke, for example, and Mark, I believe, And then John does talk about the kingdom, but much less, at least in terms of the terminology itself. But there is something there, isn't there, that I assume that Jesus is talking about the same kingdom, but kingdom of heaven and kingdom of God, same thing. So there is a close... It's synonymous to talk about the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven. Of course, the difference in the terminology likely could have been the intended audience.
I was listening to a John Piper sermon on this passage, and he reckons it's part of like Jewish culture. They try to restrict as much as possible saying God.
Yes.
Because I've heard that before. The easiest way to avoid blasphemy or using the Lord's name in vain is just to not say it at all.
Yes.
And so to say, the kingdom of heaven rather than the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that Luke doesn't seem to, have that preference.
Yeah, that's right.
But
right. And he's writing to Theophilus, who might have been, probably was a Gentile, maybe?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It's definitely a Greek sounding name.
Yeah, that's right. Which, Jewish people could have had Greek names.
Yeah.
But
that's an interesting point. Whereas like Matthew was steeped in Jewishness.
Very much the best line I heard on how to read Matthew is to read Matthew as if it's the last installment of the Old Testament.
Wow.
Or like the series finale to the Old Testament.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts off with this massive
genealogy.
Yeah, the massive
previously.
Yes,
on,
exactly.
Previously on Old Testament. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And that the genealogy itself is steeped in significance. But like that connotation there that like I think it's very much a Jewish audience that it was focused on.
Yes. Whereas it's interesting to think of like Luke was essentially, I mean, he was writing to Theophilus, which I take as one person. But also maybe I don't know whether in the back of his mind whether he would have known this is for Theophilus first and foremost, but it's also going to be made available for a wider audience, or how that can be.
I think so. I mean, Luke traveling with Paul, there's an understanding of the writings being distributed and help, so probably, I mean, Theophilus could have been someone who commissioned the Gospel of Luke and then the Book of Acts, and then like for a purpose, for an orderly account, as Luke 1:1-4 says.
Yeah.
Anyway, but looking forward to hearing your sermon.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to giving it. Like I really enjoyed dwelling on this and keen to talk about it. But what about you? What have you been dwelling on reading at the moment?
Well, I was just going to say one more thing for you, which is you're doing and have done a bit of preaching this time, haven't you? Because you do a salt talk on Friday night on marriage and sex.
Yeah.
You're going to do one next week on singleness at youth, and you're going to be preaching this one. So thank you for your work in the Bible and serving us at some
I think like over MTS, I think I've realized preaching is one, and it's a dangerous sign, but it's also maybe a good thing. It can be both, but I think preaching is one of my favorite things to do.
I think that's great.
There's the upfront nature of it, which is like, the pride thing, which you want to avoid. But I just think getting into the word, thinking how to communicate it to other people, to teach it, man, what a privilege.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for your work.
That's been good.
So today is the 30th of November, and so I'm in Proverbs 30.
Cool.
Yeah, so for listeners who don't know this about me, I read a chapter of Proverbs for the day of the month, in addition to my Old Testament and New Testament reading. Today is Proverbs 30, and I just on my way here, I'm always listening to a podcast as well, and I was listening to this ABC podcast so it's called This Working Life, which is a podcast by ABC Radio National here in Australia. If you take a look at the title of that episode, do you want to read it, Pip?
Show me the money, but will it make me happy at work?
Yeah. So have you listened to this podcast before?
I have not.
This Working Life?
No, I haven't.
I think you'd really enjoy this podcast.
Right. It's about work?
It's all about work.
There you go.
Workplace culture, work, the latest findings from research and studies from work. This particular episode, how many minutes in am I? So I'm not a huge amount in. I'm about 9 minutes in. So I've got about 16 minutes left. But the section I was just listening to on my way over, and I was already going to share from Proverbs 30, but in the providence of God, this is what's before us.
It's lined up.
It was this researcher was talking about how getting paid more at work will make you happier up to a particular threshold, but then there's actually a point after. So if you get paid even more, where happiness, the way they measure it in different studies, actually goes down.
Right, okay.
So happiness increases while your pay increases to a particular point, and then any extra after that actually decreases your happiness.
Right.
The way, they do the studies. But
why is that?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are a few things there. One is that generally speaking, up until that point, then you can actually pay all your bills, live comfortably. Anything extra usually comes with a dramatic increase in the expectation on you, but also comes with, once you have excess, you start spending more and you get into bigger debt. So there can be a greater stress that's placed on a person to sustain the amount that they're working.
And maybe there's some feelings of guilt about what you're spending that extra money on, or like, you have to decide what to spend the money on.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That can lead to kind of tensions if you If you're sharing the money with other people, or people are reliant on you, for sure.
That's a helpful insight. It's not one of the things that the guy said, but I think, for sure. But it got me thinking as well, because then the next thing he was saying is that in the research, psychologists and economists, they see 4 broad things that people use or associate with money. So the first thing is security. Money as security. The second thing is love. Money as a way of loving people. Loving your family, loving your friends. So we've got security, we've got love. Thirdly, money is power. That to have more money is to have more power. To not have money is to not have power. And the fourth thing is freedom. So money is the key to being able to do what you want to do in life, which I think is also related to power as well. So money as, security, money as love, money as power, money as freedom. This morning when I was reading Proverbs, so here we get to Proverbs, Proverbs 30. This classic passage here, which is just so rich. Proverbs 30, verses 7 to 9. 2 things I ask of you, Lord. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you, and say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal, and so dishonor the name of my God. Isn't that so profound there? Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread.
And it gives the reasons, right? If you have too much, you might disown God. If you become poor, you might be driven to steal and so dishonor God.
Yes. And that thing there about having too much and maybe disowning God, that also fits with what we were hearing on yesterday in our sermon at church on the thorny soil in the parable of the soils that Jesus gives, on how the deceitfulness of wealth and the worries of the world can actually choke the growth of the Word of God in our lives. I think there's also something here, like Proverbs 30, this idea that too much money can actually cause you to neglect and disown God. That wealth has that effect. Now,
it's interesting he uses the word deceitfulness in Matthew.
Yes.
You know, it's not the opportunity of the freedom that wealth brings or the power of wealth, it's the deceitfulness of wealth.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So, but no, it also, I mean, this verse, just give me my daily bread.
Yes.
It reminds me of Jesus.
Yes,
you know,
the Lord's Prayer.
The Lord's Prayer, give me today my daily bread. It reminds me of the manna in the wilderness. Don't store up excess kind of thing. Just trust God for the day kind of thing.
Yes. There's so much richness in these verses, isn't there? But I think that there's the reflection I had just on my way driving over here is that it's such a different picture from money as security, love, power, and freedom. This is a picture of money as gift.
Yeah, nice.
Isn't it? Notice how he says, give me. Who's he saying give me? It's verse 7, I ask of you, Lord. So he's seeing money, at least I think what the writer of Proverbs, who is it? Agor, son of Jakeh, as verse 1 says. It's seeing money as a gift of God. Now, I don't think that there are inherent problems with seeing money as security, love, power, and freedom. But I think there is a problem when you ultimately see it in these ways and neglect the fact that the Bible's picture of wealth and possessions and money is as a gift from God, that none of it is owed to us, and actually every good thing we have is a gift from God.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
And also, to see it as gift is also then to see it as something that has been entrusted to us by the gift giver, which then also changes the way we think about security, love, power, and freedom. That all of these things have been entrusted to us by God, not things that are inherently ours. Anyway, I just think I was reflecting on that it's just a different picture of money.
Yeah. And I've heard he uses language of like ownership versus stewardship.
Yes.
It's like God, we don't own the money, God owns the money.
Yes.
We're stewards of our money.
Yes.
That's super helpful language. Like, you know, I think any gift from God, we steward it. It's not ours by right. We don't own it. It's a gift from God. Yeah. Yes. And I guess that verse is often misquoted, which is like, the desire, or the desire of money?
Love of money?
The love of money
is the root of all kinds of evils. Yeah, 1 Timothy 6.
1 Timothy 6. And it's often, people often say money is the root of all evil. But it doesn't say, it's actually the love of money is the root of all evil. And I guess that nuance is important because it shows there's nothing wrong with money, but there is danger to having a great amount of money. And wanting a lot of money.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. No.
I was going to say, although...
Yeah.
A friend helpfully pointed out to me that Jesus ups it a notch from where Paul goes in 1 Timothy 6.
Where does
come with me in Matthew? Matthew 6.
All right.
Go. Because we're the Bible boys. We are the Bible boys.
So we want to read the Bible.
We want to read the Bible. That's right. Matthew 6, 24. Do you want to read that verse?
Sure. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money.
Fascinating, isn't it? So, 1 Timothy 6, Paul says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And so, and actually, I think that makes a lot of sense in his context, because he's saying, warn the rich not to put their trust in wealth in this life. But here, Jesus, in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 6, he says, you will either hate God and love money, or you will hate money and love God. You cannot serve both God and money. That's stronger, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I would say...
Please.
I would say, on that, there is somewhere... I hate not being able to, get it right in my head.
No, that's right. What do you think? Which part are you thinking about?
If you do not hate mother, father, brother, sister, you're not worthy to be part of the kingdom of God. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, that's right. That's Matthew 18, I believe. Is it Matthew 18?
Yeah, I need to be better at memorizing, because I read it in
Matthew 19. Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
The last time I read that was in Luke.
Luke 18.
Yeah, yes. But it's that what does hate mean?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it?
Do you know what I mean?
That's right. So I think. Oh, sorry. No, you're talking about that if you do not hate your...
Yes.
Well, that's Luke 14. So
okay.
Luke 14.
Luke 14.
Because we are the Bible boys.
Yes, that's right.
Luke 14.
Cost of being a disciple.
Yes, that's it.
That's it.
Verse 26 to 27.
Yes. So, yes. If anyone comes to me does not hate father and mother, wife, children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. And so... Paul says regarding marriage, love your wife, as you said. He who doesn't love their own, do you know what I mean? And so it's like, what does it mean to hate your own life? What does it mean to hate your mother and father when God says honor them? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then back to the money thing, what does it mean to hate one and love God? I'm not sure if it means to... in and of itself to hate that thing. But in comparison, it's like a comparison thing. I think.
Yes.
In your comparison to your love for God, you'd hate that thing in comparison. Or you'd leave that thing in comparison to being with God. What do you think of that?
No, I think so. No, as in, there is I think that there is a trickiness to working out what this word hate means. Might be a bit of a cop-out thing, but I think for me, I've found a working definition for love and hate that has helped me in thinking about these passages. Yep. So I feel like when you see how love is portrayed in the Bible, so here's my definition of love. Love is a desire to draw near to through service.
Ooh.
Love is a desire to draw near to through service.
Okay.
So, what does it mean for God to have loved us? God has drawn near to us through service.
Yes.
And we see it most clearly in the death of Jesus. Greater life has no man than this, that he should lay down his life for his friends. Jesus laid down his life, serving us to draw us near.
Yeah.
So I think that love comes with the connotations of service in order to draw near to or closely associate with. So then hatred, flip it the other way, I think it's this idea of not wanting to associate with, not wanting to draw near to. Not the same thing as being bitter or malicious or like, thinking bad thoughts over. Because I don't know how you do that with money. Like, oh, money's bad, money's this, money's that. So maybe in Matthew 6, when it says, you'll love one or hate the other, hate one or love the other, what he's really saying is you need to serve God and draw near to God, and then not draw near to money, not associate with. So it's this idea of,
it's like a
what do you draw near to?
It's like a force, it's
like a vortex.
It's like gravity.
It's like gravity.
What do you kind of? What's the thing that pulls you toward it just by how good it is?
Yes.
Is it God or money?
Yes. Yeah. So I think what's going on there is because he's going to then say in Matthew 6, like, do not worry. Don't you see that I provide for you? So there's a sense in which I think what he's saying, what Jesus is trying to get at there, is that don't serve money and seek to draw near to money. Actually, serve God, seek to draw near to God, push money away, in the sense of, and I actually think that also makes sense of money. Don't just hoard money, spend it, use it to love, and then so it's that idea of pushing away sort of thing. Which then also, if you think about Luke 14, where it's like, if anyone doesn't hate father, mother, wife, and children, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. I think there's this idea here of, like, will you love your family or your life and seek to serve and draw near to your family or your life even more than you'll seek to serve and draw near to Jesus himself?
Yes. It's like accruing and keeping and holding.
Yes.
Yes. Or holding it loosely so that you can be tight with God and have God and be with God. Yes.
That's right. And I think also in Luke 14, there might be you need to love Jesus to such an extent that it even seems like hatred. But that's one way you could also seek to understand that as well. So anyway, does that help, that love-hate sort of way of thinking about it?
Yeah. Because, I mean, you get the language differently in other parts. I could think of, James, I think, who says, like, if you say, you love Jesus, but you hate a brother, then you're not a disciple, It's like authentic being a Christian. You got to love your brothers, you love your sisters in the faith.
Yes, that's right.
And so I guess you got to kind of wrestle with the context of the word and what's it.
I think you're referring to it was a few weeks ago, wasn't it? We were in 1 John.
Maybe it's 1 John.
Yeah, 1 John. It's like, dear friends, what is it? Oh, if anyone who claims to be in the light but hates a brother or sister is still in the darkness. Anyone who loves their brother and sister lives in the light. So it's this idea of if you say you hate your brother or sister, actually that works there as well, doesn't it? If you say you want nothing to do, you want to push away, you don't want to draw near to a brother or sister, then are you actually a Christian? Are you someone who genuinely has been loved by God and understands the love you have for each other? I think anyway, it's been a way that I seek to put that together. This idea of drawing near to close association. Anyway. So money, I think we see it as gift that God has given us that we use for security, love, power, freedom. But ultimately, I think things go wrong when you see money chiefly or ultimately as one of those 4 things and not as a gift that God has given us to be used. Anyway. That's it.
There you go. Yeah, I think this, as you accrue money, this is just a random thought. I watched this, it was either Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, one of those rich guys. And they were kind of, I think maybe it was Warren Buffett, who was kind of explaining to his spouse, if I don't give a lot of money away now, the interest will actually allow us to give away more money later. And she was saying, no, you should have a habit of giving things away. Even as you accrue wealth.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And I think, I don't know if that kind of, that's obviously a multi-billionaire.
Yes.
But like, it sometimes applies on more of a micro scale as well. It's like, if I can, I need to save up money to buy a nice car, a nice house, Because when I have someone in my car or in my house, it'll be more loving to them to have a nice thing for them to be in. And, you know, I'll be able to go out to nicer restaurants with my friends, which will be more loving to them. I think there's something there.
Yes.
You know, that's good.
Yes.
And maybe something that's not so good. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a good point. There is and I think this is where the money as love thing is tricky, because this is where you get into both materialism on one hand and consumerism on the other hand, in that what some people will think is loving is very warped by our society and culture. Like I have an auntie who has a friend. So a few steps removed, right? So I have an auntie who has a friend who's very much like, if you ever take her to a particular kind of restaurant that isn't like a certain number of stars, that is not loving at all. Right. And that's not that unusual. Can you imagine like I can imagine like some workplaces where it's like, you know, it's like, oh, we're going for a company dinner or something, and then you go to some like, you know, a $10
you don't feel
store.
the appreciation.
It's like, that's not loving. Whereas my perspective, like straight up, Viv and I were like, hey, if it's yummy, we don't mind. Go wherever. Totally. That being said, even Viv and I, our perceptions are warped in different ways, because what's loving in one culture will be different from what's loving there. So I think we've got to be careful, because that mindset of what you're saying.
It's hard. There's a balance there. Because I think there is a sense in which part of the reason why you want to buy flowers for your house, you want to buy things that are kind of nice, partly because you want to be hospitable. And you don't want to be a cheapskate when it comes to things, because, you know, buying nicer things can actually increase your ability to be hospitable and to love people. It's just finding that, you know, I wrestle with that in my head. You know, the path of ministry, for example. There's not heaps of money there. Yeah. Particularly in the first 10 years as you're going through college and starting out. You know, and it's like, that is a particular kind of, you know, desire to live for the gospel and to, you know, do gospel work. But then on the other hand, you could be earning a lot more money elsewhere and starting to kind of, you know, invest in a house or invest in something where you're able to, as a hub of hospitality. I think this there are multiple ways to love God, to love people. You know,
and that's a helpful thing to point out there, because you could flip the other way and see very much like it is completely wrong to ever enjoy the creation that God has given us and the gift of money to enjoy that creation. I mean, this is so many times on this podcast we brought it up, like 1 Timothy 4:5, you know, 4 verse 5, everything God created is good and nothing is to be rejected if it's received with thanksgiving. Like it is a good thing to enjoy the wonderful gifts that God has given us. You know, I sometimes I think about, because I remember hearing about this theologian who I will go unnamed, but like, you know, we've heard prosperity gospel on one side, which is, you know, if you access God with the right faith, He will shower you with blessings, and like that's actually the sign of a strong faith. But you can also have what's called a poverty theology, that actually what is more commendable in the sight of God is to actually not be able to not have enough and to be giving everything away. I think about this one preacher who I heard the story that he did very much have that sort of mindset and gave everything away. And his wife would talk about how she would be trudging through the snow with the kids, because number one, they didn't have a car, but also they didn't have enough money to buy medicine for the family, and like it just really affected like the family there. But the husband was very much like, no, we're doing the right thing, because this is now. Don't get me wrong, I understand a car is in many places a luxury, and medicine as well is like, you know. There's lots of places in the world where there isn't medicine, but that's an example where very much the family suffered. And I think it's in going against places like 1 Timothy 5, where it says, he who does not provide for his family is worse than an unbeliever. And so, yeah, I really appreciate what you said on, like, there's so many different ways it can happen.
Yeah.
But I think it is good for us to also know it's not a bad thing to enjoy. I like seeing money as a gift also means you receive it with thanksgiving.
Yes.
And you can love your family and love that. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm alright to say that it's mentioned, is it asceticism?
Asceticism, yeah.
Is that kind of this poverty theology? Is that the same thing?
I think it's part of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say I don't know poverty theology as much as prosperity gospel.
Sure. Yeah. It also brings to mind, like, I mean, you know, did John the Baptist and Jesus both, you know, key in God's plan of salvation, obviously.
Yes.
And yet they looked very different.
They did.
John came, you know, and they you know, he wasn't a, you know, he lived more of a, you know, he wore, you know.
Yeah.
And they said he has a demon, whereas Jesus came eating and drinking. They called him a glutton and a drunkard. And so they looked very different.
Yes.
You know?
That's right. That's a very good point.
Anyway,
there you go. There's a deep dive into money, wasn't it?
Deep dive.
Love
the deep dive.
Love it. It's great.
Anything in the email inbox?
Oh, good question. I haven't checked yet. Let me check. But do we have anything from Instagram?
I think I did a poll, which was, I just asked people, what do you think of when you think of heaven? And I got one response, which was footy. Someone thinks footy. That's it. That's it.
Footy is what they think of as
yes. I should do more polls so we have more content.
It's alright. And that is totally fine. Hey, actually, I've got some things that have happened. Oh, interesting. Okay, so sorry. This is riveting content for our listeners, isn't it?
Let's see. Is it another spam email from a spam bot?
No, we've got some messages on the Bible Boys Instagram.
Do we?
What happened to the rock on which Jesus would build his church? It was in the message requests, which I don't think you saw, so it didn't come up as a notification. But now it's in the primary inbox. You checking it?
I can't see it. Where is it?
Can you see it there?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
What did he say?
So, what happened to the rock on which Jesus would build his church?
Ah, yes.
What happened to the rock on which Jesus would build his church?
Peter, so thank you for that question.
So that's referencing Matthew 16.
Yes. Let's go there quickly.
Because we're
the Bible boys. We love the Bible.
No, Viv said something to me the other day where she goes, you know, James, I've realised you say we're the Bible boys a lot. And I said, I think we say it at least once every episode.
It is a lot. And I think we also have over-mentioned our email address a lot.
Oh, all the time.
We say it like 3 times.
These are like memes. And listeners, you can.
Look, if you want to email us,
you can do it at.
There's an address. You might not know what it is. And so we're going to say it right now. It is the Bible Boys.
With a Z.
At gmail.com.
What's that email again, Pip?
Well, do we really need to say it? let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
No, it's the Bible Boys with a Z at gmail.com.
There you go. Matthew 16. Matthew 16, verse 17. Jesus replied, let me go back. Verse 15. But what about you? He asked. This is Jesus. Who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. For this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. So this is what our questioner is asking about. Once again, the question was... What happened to the rock on which Jesus would build his church?
This is a bit of a real idea, but do you reckon the disciples would have responded with, don't you mean loosened? Loosed. Jeez, we've never heard that. Loosed. What is that word? Loose? What have you loose? What is it? Loosen. Just you're missing the bigger point.
Yes, that's right. Listen to the substance of my words.
I love this bit though, because Jesus says, Peter, you've nailed it. You're the rock. I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom. Next paragraph, Peter's like, never, Lord, you'll never die, kind of thing. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan.
Yes.
You're a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Peter flip-flops. He's a yo-yoer.
Yes.
Yes.
But let's seek to answer this question now. Yeah. I think you should do that, a reel on that.
You mean loosened?
Do that one, but then also do the, you're awesome, you're the rock.
Next minute.
It's like
10 minutes later.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, what happened to the rock? Well, the rock, as I understand it, love to hear what you think. Pip, I almost called you Peter. I feel like the rock is the confession that Simon Peter answers, which is, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So the rock, this is what the question is asking. What happened to the rock? First of all, the rock is actually the confession that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. That's what I think it's referring to.
Nice.
What do you think about that?
Well, yes, I think you're right. It is interesting. Doesn't Peter mean rock?
Peter does mean rock.
So one idea is that maybe he's talking. Sorry, I've lost my chapter. Where is it?
Matthew 16.
One idea is that maybe he's talking to all the disciples and saying, "You're collectively the rock. I'm going to build my church on you." Because the story of Acts is they go out. They're kind of the rocks. They're the foundation.
Yeah, right.
Paul talks about laying a foundation on which the church is built. So it's like the apostles have that apostolic ministry of laying the foundation, being the rock on which the church is built. Jesus obviously is the cornerstone.
And the head.
Yes. Lots of language
That's
there.
Right.
But no, it's Peter. And so it makes me think, okay, well, let's go to Acts and think, who's the one that leads the charge in the gospel proclamation? Is it not Peter?
It is Peter for the first 11, 12 chapters of Acts, isn't it? Yeah.
So that's the way I would answer that. In a very real sense, Peter's the guy.
Yes.
On which Jesus builds his church at the start of Acts.
So we have two answers to the rock here. One is the confession. And what happens to it? Well, it continues to this day. Right? The confession that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of the living God, continues to this day.
I gotta say, I do like that. My thing about the beginning of Acts is just, it could be wrong.
No, but I think it's worth exploring, because if that is the answer, so if the rock is actually Peter and the other apostles, what happened to them? They actually accomplished what Jesus said he would do, which is build his church, and we see that throughout the book of Acts.
And Peter, Peter, when you read through the Gospels, Peter plays this really significant role. He seems to be there he's part of the inner three, Peter, James, and John, sees the transfiguration. And not only, I reckon, I think there's an inner one. Within the inner three, there's the 12, then there's the inner three. I think there's an inner one, and I think it's Peter, to be honest.
Yes.
Because, Peter seems to have this, at the end of John, this, Peter's the one, Jesus says to him, feed my sheep.
Yes.
And a third time.
Yes.
Feed my sheep.
Counter argument. Just for the sake of counter.
Sure.
I don't actually I disagree with that.
Sure.
But John, the disciple Jesus loved.
Yeah. But it wasn't love.
You didn't really want to draw near to this one.
I love chocolate.
Oh my goodness.
Do I love?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. But it is interesting when you trace,
Yes.
Peter has crowds and he's 12 and, as you trace, and he has God on his side, God the Father.
Yes.
And as I love to explain you can explain the story of the gospel in lots of ways, but I love to explain it as terms of who's following Jesus.
Yeah.
Who's with Jesus. It goes from being, this massive crowd very quickly And then it gets to the point where the crowd drifts away and it's just him and the 12.
Yes.
And then it gets to the point where it's just him and the 3 because they go a little bit further to pray. And then it gets to the point where it's just him and Peter.
And Peter's following him.
Following him. And then Peter betrays. And then it's just Jesus. But then you remember, wait, Jesus still has God. And then it's just Jesus and God on the cross, one-on-one. And then God says goodbye and forsakes him.
That is fascinating. You know? Oh, I really, really like that.
Yeah. And so who forsakes Jesus in the Gospels? You can just go through the crowds, the 9, the 2, Peter, and then God the Father.
Yeah.
This brutal.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
You didn't just come up with that, did you?
No, that's been one of the ways I've talked about how, I think it's quite an effective way to kind of.
No, I think that's really effective. I like that. I'm going to use that if you don't mind.
There you go.
There you go. That's it.
Cool.
That's it. Well, listeners, thank you so much for going on this deep dive into a number of topics with us today. Light when it comes to us, serious about the things of God. That's what we're on about here at
The Bible Boys.
That's it.
With a Z.
Z.
At gmail.com. Email us. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.